Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we are looking at best bets here for a Monday in the NBA. Got an 8-game slate here on the 18th, and we've got a pretty good slate, I'd say, as well. Some weird games with some stuff going on Sunday, some back-to-backs, but we are going to be putting together the best bets in this one and also have player props up in a separate video for you, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along all season with us. Also want you to head to TheLines.com and use everything we have up on the site, including that player props finder. Make sure you're getting the best player prop bets there and all the juice back on all these bets you're making in the NBA this season. Nate, let's go ahead and kick it off with the first game here, a little Eastern Conference showdown between those Heat and the 76ers.
Yeah, and it's kind of a game to avoid the play-in is the impetus here. So when we see Jimmy Butler sit out on Sunday, maybe he's resting up for this one. I mean, they get the back-to-back at Detroit, so it's not like a real back-to-back situation for Miami, I guess, because they know they could just toy around and still beat Detroit in the clutch. I mean, they had won 3 straight back-to-backs before losing at OKC, so including at Philly without Jimmy Butler. So I think we can take the Heat money line here, which is what the bet at plus 140. Plus 3, plus 4 is where you can get the spread at, and honestly, that's fine to hedge with that because the Heat just all they do is play close games. It seems they already have 10 clutch games since the All-Star break. They should be in this. Philly has also played a ton of close games, but like I trust Miami so much more in the clutch right now, and I trust them to kind of remember what happened last year where they couldn't beat the Nets in 2 head-to-head matchups, fell into the play-in spot. It looked like their season was going to be over, and then they wound up clawing out of there. But like every report from inside the team is like, we don't want to let that happen again. We want a legit playoff spot, and you have to win this game to do so. Sixers, I mean, I think I'm on the record with them saying that they flat out suck without Joel Embiid. I mean, they were able to beat Charlotte, which is the only team in the league with the worst offensive rating than the Sixers in their last 7 games. So I don't think you need to read into that. Also, a poor rebounding team, and that's one of the biggest issues with the Sixers right now without Embiid. But I mean, specifically, they're scoring the highest percentage of their points off turnovers and trying to get out and run. Obviously, with Maxey back, that's got to be your identity. Miami has the 2nd lowest turnover rate and the 6th best transition D on the road. And they allow the 2nd fewest free throw attempts. So, I mean, Philly allowing the 6th most free throws at home and the 5th highest free throw attempt in their last 7 here. So, I mean, if Jimmy's out there, you definitely like this pick a lot more. But we always talk about with Miami, it does if you expect them to let up because they're missing guys or that they're going to be even more sizable underdogs, that's when you like to back them. So I think either way, Spo and the gang will find a way to get this win here against a Philly team that's just not very good.
They're not, no. I mean, honestly, this Miami team has been so bad. Duncan's been nice, though. A little Duncan Robinson action has been really good when he's running that pick and roll with Bam as of late. And so I'm not impressed by either of these teams right now. But in a situation where Miami barely beats the Detroit Pistons one day before, it's like, all right, well, I guess that means they're going to play well in this next game because that's how they've been all season long. And so just based on that completely non-stat based, idea, or theory, then yeah, this would be another one where you also look at Jimmy not playing and he's questionable. It would seem that he was like always going to sit in the game on Sunday so he could get it into the game against the 76ers. But we'll see if that's actually the case because the Heat do funny things with their lineups. But obviously, if he's in, then this is an even better bet than it already looks like. So I'm going to go to an interesting, tricky one here, but I think I can get the measure of it, which is Indy and Cleveland in Indiana. And I'm taking the Indiana team total over 114.5 for about minus 105 on DraftKings. And it's so funny because I was like, do I want to go with a Cleveland under? Do I want to go with a Indy over? Like, why am I that far away? Cleveland's just been so weird. Like, they do have a few games where all of a sudden they go over, like that Phoenix game, even though they didn't have Donnie Mitchell. And now they're not going to have him again. We know that. He left Saturday's game and tried to come back, but it was already too late. They got absolutely pounced in their game on Saturday against Houston, who is really good right now, even without Alpi Şengün. But that's been the weird thing about Cleveland is like they have 105 points per game in their last 20 games when Donnie doesn't play, and he's missed 9 of the last 20 games, played in 11 of them. In the 11 games he's been in there, they're scoring about $118. So it's just like, the pace is also dropping tremendously when he's not in there, and they don't even have 3-point shooting. I mean, Dean Wade is going to play in this one, it looks like, but we know that Max Strus is once again out in this one. So if like Niang and Dean Wade are able to sort of rain threes alongside Garland, then maybe they have a shot to stick around. Everything I can understand that how everything I'm saying would lead most people to be like, well, then just take the Pacers to cover this spread, and that should be the case. But my thing is, if the Pacers don't cover this spread because Cleveland decides to hang around, then I think we're looking at over. And if Indiana is going to score theirs anyway, then that's what I'm trusting with the team total, right? Like, I understand that Cleveland has been okay defending down low. Their points in the paint overall pretty good, but if you go all the in terms of defensively, they're still limiting teams like the 8th fewest points in the paint per game over the course of their last like 10 games or so, where like Donnie's barely played and they've only had Jared Allen, which will be the case again without Evan Mobley. But it's also just like the actual rim protection, right? Once you get inside of 5 feet and you talk about attacking the rim, the frequency with which Indiana does that, they're not stopping for a lot of floaters. They're going all the way to the rim. They're throwing a lot of lobs, and they're getting out in transition is what they've done all season. And honestly, in terms of rim defensive field goal percentage, this Cleveland team has not been as good. They've been sort of deterring those shots from the paint when they're a little bit further away from the basket. But the closer you get, the worse that they've been, essentially. And the Indy D has been good enough over the course of its last 10 games. I mean, 3rd best defensive rating over the course of the last 5, playing really good teams. They have the 6th hardest strength of schedule over their last 5 games. And they're also limiting teams to the 2nd worst effective field goal percentage. And their defensive field goal percentage at the rim is 2nd best over the course of their last 5. And Cleveland is going to continue to try to attack the rim without that 3-point shooting available, which really, we're talking about Donovan Mitchell and Max Strus, 2 of the guys that take the most 3-pointers on the team, right alongside Darius Garland. So I think all of that, the only place where I think like Indy might be vulnerable is if Darius Garland goes completely off. And if he does that, then which he's capable of, and Indy's bad at guarding guys like Darius Garland. We'll talk more about that. And the guys that want to play in that pick and roll and be the ball handler and shoot off of the dribble, all that type of stuff, right? Not the spot up guys. They're actually really good at defending spot up stuff because they don't double, right? And so that's going to be one area where if that one dude who is a really talented point guard and shooter decides that he's going to go off that game and score 30, 35, okay, but that would only make me feel better about the team total for Indy, who at home over their last 5 or 6 games, averaging about $120 as well. So it just seems like another ripe opportunity for a Cleveland team that, like, I mean, they just gave up 120 to Houston with this same squad, right? And Houston is not anybody without Alpi Şengün that we feel comfortable backing on offense. So with all that in mind, like in the recent numbers, I know it's weird to bet on a Cleveland team right now, but I'm going to take over for the Indy team total.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, Indy at home, but specifically, against this personnel, when you replace like Evan Mobley with George Niang, like that's a huge drop off in terms of rim protection and just being able to stand up to this Indy offense, which is pretty good. They haven't faced each other since early in the season for 6 games, in fact, for Indy, and they dropped 121 and 125, win both games. Halliburton now is back at that level that he was playing at early in the season when they were dropping like 125 on everybody. So I'm fine backing their offense and saying I don't even care what Cleveland brings to the table without Tani, because they might not score much at all. I will take an over here in Utah, over 222.5. And I mean, it's dangerous taking overs these days with the NBA getting a little bit lower scoring, but and so with the Wolves. But I mean, first of all, the Wolves here are in a look ahead spot. They are at Denver on Tuesday. So this much more important game coming up after this. Rudy Gobert is questionable. He missed Saturday. This game still did go under the total without Rudy. Got to 219, but the Wolves, I mean, certainly had a lot of success on offense. It was just the Jazz with some 3-point regression. 8 for 26 from deep. That's not usually how they're going to shoot at home. And they might get Lauri Markkanen back. So I think you bet this and you hope he's playing. But I think, once again, like I don't think you're drawing dead without him. They are averaging about 113 without him at home, shooting 34% from deep. They averaged 125 with him at home, and he's dropped 22 in his last 3 against Minnie, when Minnie was far closer to full strength in a lot of those in terms of like having Cat in the lineup, and I mean we're focusing on what they lose offensively without him, but their defense without him is also just going to be less formidable. I mean, they are allowing the third highest free throw rate in the last 5 and 7th most paint points, which is very eyebrow raising from a team that's supposed to be number 1 against paint points no matter what. And I mean, we're only looking at a very small sample in terms of missing Rudy in games. Yes, good defense against the Jazz and against the Nets. They had 120 plus defensive rating and losses to the Lakers and the Celtics when Rudy missed those games. And then on the other side, like Naz Reid is way more of instant offense than Rudy Gobert having in there. I mean, he's got a 125 offensive rating his last 4. Mike Conley, we've seen get hot in these last 2 wins, and I was almost going to pull the trigger and player props for over 13.5 points for him. I don't hate that either. I mean, if he's going to continue to hoist a bunch of shots because they need his offense. And I mean, this Jazz defense is just so bad. Like we talked about it when they played the Hawks on Friday before this Wolves game. They got a win. They snapped their 7-game skid with only 1 win in there, 6 straight overs. And then they faced the Wolves and they had a dud. But I mean, you can count on them giving up a ton of points. I mean, they have the worst defensive rating, the highest assist to turnover ratio. They're allowing opponents to shoot 45% from 3 since the All-Star break and giving up a ton of fast break points. So I think they'll give up close to 120. And then if Markkanen's back, that offense should look a lot better.
Yeah, 100%. If he is, it should look a lot better. Interestingly, Chris Dunn started the other night, and Con Sexton came off the bench, even though Sexton then scored a bunch more points. So, I mean, yeah, we just saw this. It wouldn't surprise me if Rudy doesn't play in this one. I think they have a big game coming up after this one. Maybe it's Tuesday or Wednesday for this Timberwolves team. I just want to, they're playing the Nuggets the very next night.
I just told you, yes.
I know. I missed that part. I missed that part. I was looking at something, and then as soon as I said, I was like, "Damn it, he just said that," and I knew you were going to come with it. And that is a huge part of it. That's like maybe the starting point for the bet, right? But I forgot if you said it was the next night or the night after. So yeah, 222.5 there is a good number for them to just for us to look at and go like, are they really going to care? We're back in that same position where we talk about Utah at least having those offensive weapons at this point, and at home. What do you want to do, man? Like it's Utah at home, death and taxes and points, and that's what we can rely on. So I'm going to close it out with 2 teams near and dear to my heart in the Knicks taking on the Warriors in Golden State. Closing up this road trip for the New York Knickerbockers here, as well as I believe they're going to head back to New York by Wednesday they're done with this road trip. So they're going to be really happy to get home, but I still think that they're ready to take care of business one more time on this trip out west where, like the Warriors, for me, the first thing I thought of was this is a ripe opportunity for, okay, I was all over them on Saturday where I was like, I don't know about the plus 2.5. Steph was that late ad, or he was a sort of game time decision, and waiting on that was like, I don't know about that, but I knew the over was coming, and I knew if Steph played, he was going to go off as sort of a resurgence from coming back from injury and them being like, wow, we missed you. We couldn't do anything on offense without you. And now it's not necessarily a letdown game, but you got an Eastern Conference opponent coming in who is still pretty geared up and in the fight for their lives for the basically like the 4 or 5 seed, understanding that the Warriors need another win, but it's a letdown spot for them in my eyes, the way that they played after a win, haven't looked that good this season as well. It's not like they've been like a streaky team. They've really been sort of hovering around that 500, winning, losing. When you look at the Knicks coming in, I think it's just really about like they're going to be able to stop what Golden State wants to do better than Golden State is going to be able to stop what they want to do. And that's where I'm at. Isaiah Hartenstein is going to be a big part of this. He is back, in my opinion, like 28.5 minutes last game. They weren't willing to play him that, right, in the basically like 10 games prior, as they really truly slowly ramped him but back up into his minutes, which should be around between 28 and 30 per game, with 30 really being the more common sort of like average of his minutes. With that in mind, you're talking about the Warriors relying really heavily on shooting threes and getting offensive rebounds. And the Knicks are going to limit your offensive rebounds and your second chance points as well, if not better, than pretty much every team in the league. Over the course of the last 10, it's been that case on the season. They've got the second fewest opponent second chance points given up as well. And guess who was first? It was the Kings in terms of limiting that number as well. And that actually didn't work out for the Kings with giving up those second chance points to the Knicks, who did get a bunch of offensive rebounds in that one. And the Knicks actually, while they score more second chance points per game than the Golden State Warriors, they do it with far fewer possessions. So it's actually much more impressive the way that they're doing that. The other thing is the free throw attempt rate, right? That's something that we've talked about with the Dubs consistently, is like, if you can't limit, if they can't limit you from getting to the free throw line, they're going to be in trouble. They did a pretty good job of that against AD and company, not against LeBron, but AD and everybody else in that Lakers game. They sort of just gave it up to LeBron and said, like, as long as we stop the dude who more consistently goes to the free throw line from even getting the ball and being able to get in those positions, then we'll be good, right? And that worked out there. But in this one, like, I do look at the Knicks continuing to crash, maybe even more consistently than we saw from that Lakers team. They are continuing to get to the free throw line. And rely on it pretty much when they have JB throwing Jalen Brunson back in and throwing those sort of lobs and things, because he is going to be running that pick and roll a ton. The the Knicks are no, I am saying that the Dubs. The Dubs are a little bit worse. They're much worse, rather, I should say, defending the pick and roll man than they are the pick and roll ball handler. They really are struggling when it comes to guys like Trace Jackson Davis, Kuminga. I mean, even Draymond to a degree. He's playing that drop defense still, but everybody else has been struggling with that sort of drop D that Draymond has been playing, and you've seen them give up a ton of points there. And lastly, for me, like, the Knicks defense, I mean, it's back to a 91.5 rating over the last 5 games. OG is a huge part of that. He's questionable again, but it seems like he's going to be one of those dudes now that's on the questionable report. You know, he's going to have a Q tag moving forward pretty consistently, maybe through the end of the season, honestly, because they want that ability. Part of that is if you don't put somebody on the injury report and put them on too late, you can be subject to fines for not giving enough heads up or notice, right? You have to have them on there. So they just kind of keep them on there at this point, which is what we've seen with AD and LeBron and the rest. And with OG out there, you know, it's interesting because OG missed a lot of time at the same time as Julius Randle. So it's hard to gauge, like, are they doing better are they playing like a little bit slower because OG's not there? Jalen Brunson missed a couple. Like, it was a little bit tough to really gather his impact on it. But I will say his on-off numbers for defense are just that good, right? Like, they have like a 98 defensive rating with OG Anunoby on the floor, which is absolutely absurd. So at the 91.5 D rating that they have over their last 5, I don't know that it's super sustainable, but I can tell you that the pace will continue to be really, really slow for them as well. And the Dubs coming home, they played much better defense. So I think if it's a closer, lower scoring game, it's just always going to favor the Knicks, and 4.5 points is too much at that point.
Road Warriors are the Knicks. Yeah, I mean, they do have one more at Denver to end this road trip on Thursday. And you got to get this one because you're probably not getting a win there. And they're making a climb here in the standings. I mean, if you look at their road game log since the OG trade, their losses at Dallas, where it was just kind of time for a loss finally, at Houston with the horrible blown call, and at Orlando, who they've since corrected that. Otherwise, we're looking at 9-3 on the road, including 4 straight wins since the All-Star break. So, yeah, I mean, if you're getting value here in terms of money line or a plus 4.5, like you might as well take the Knicks. Like, this is a total toss up in my mind in terms of like, will these teams bring it? But the Knicks have been far more consistent in terms of bringing it when they have their bodies.
Yep, that's 100% it. So that's all the time we have for you in the Best Bets video. Also got player props up as we do each and every weekday. So until we see you next, happy betting.